Martin Salzwedel, with us from Germany, works with leaders internationally on executive and organizational development. He founded a consulting firm in 1995 and collaborates with renowned international business schools. He uses his expertise as a concert-level cellist, composer, and author of several Enneagram books to unearth the full potential of his clients. And I know that Martin has written a book on Enneagram and leadership. Unfortunately, if you can't read German, you can't have the pleasure of reading that, but he's an author as well. I'd like to ask each of you to talk a little bit, to give us sort of a brief introduction to how you use the Enneagram in businesses and how you see it being used today generally. So Martin, how do you use the Enneagram most in your work?
Well, as Danny said, in coaching, I'm always working with the Enneagram, and no exception. In seminars and trainings, I do a lot of executive trainings for the business schools. I see a rift. There are some people who want to learn the ultimate manipulation tool. And then there are those who actually want to learn self-reflection and self-awareness. And I can tell from the very beginning, like you describing it, Ginger, some people, they come there and they talk about command and control. And then I have to explain to them, it does not work. It never has worked. It will never work because you have to name it correctly, and that's command and manipulate. Now that sounds different. And manipulation usually is done with money. You just pay people money so they do something that they wouldn't do otherwise. Pretty simple. Mm-hmm. And when I say this, I can tell in my audience, I have 10, 12 people, sometimes 14 in a seminar, who goes, yeah, and who goes, what? And there's a rift. People who want to learn something about themselves, they just drink it in, it's like, and they're totally excited about it. And others, the old chauvinists, they just want something else, and that's fine with me. I struggled for a long time to understand it's not about me, and to address it as honestly as I can. And in the companies that I work with the Enneagram, where I work with the Enneagram, it's the same thing. Some want to use it. One example, it's a software producing company, and they wanted to establish a networking organization within their organization. So, in order to integrate more personal responsibility, they wanted to use the Enneagram. But then the boss didn't really participate. He has a coach, and he does work with the Enneagram, but he never showed up in the meetings. It doesn't work. Forget it. I mean, it's a manipulation tool. I got out of that project because I don't want to do this. I didn't sleep well. And on the other side, it's a guy who was the manager of the sales company of a corporation out of Cleveland, Ohio. He was the boss in Austria, and he had some problems. And we started with the Enneagram, and within a short period of time, he just grabbed it, and he's there in every meeting with his team, every seminar he organizes himself. They increased the turnover 20% each year. They doubled it within 5 years with the same amount of people, just by understanding each other. And I wrote it down here. He always talks about the beauty of diversity. We understand that we are different, and that's really, really beautiful. And in that company, he got promoted. In Austria, it was a small sales company. Now he's the boss in Germany, and difficult for Germans to accept an Austrian as a boss. Now he has 4,000 people, and he's still doing the same thing. I mean, he's sitting there from the very first second of the workshop for 2 days or 3 days. He's sitting there with his whole team, and he's a 3. You know, he says, "Hey guys, you need to step on the brake when I'm too fast." I have this tendency. I know. You know, before I learned the Enneagram, before I got to know the Enneagram, I was always the one. If everybody would be like me, we would get things done. Mm-hmm. And now he says, he goes to the 6 and says, "I need you. Would you please give me your perspective? Mm-hmm. Who has another perspective?" Mm-hmm. You know, and it's all, you know, if the top guy does not participate, forget it.
Right. And do you find in your travels that in different regions that you work in, people are more or less open to the Enneagram and to using it as a self-reflection method?
Not really.
So it's pretty much everywhere
yes,
you go,
yes.
you find people who are really open to it.
And you know, in the business schools, it's also really interesting. You know, they used MBTI and DISC and all kinds of. I'm a certified trainer for all these models as well. You know? So, and I started the Enneagram first. I learned myself for 12 years. I said I'm just going to do everything I can do and go to every school that's available and learn. And then after 12 years, I integrated into my professional life. So when I started in this thing called business school, they said, "Hey, Martin, can't you do MBTI?" So I said, "Why should I do second best when I know the best?" You know? So,
yeah.
And they said, "Well, okay, the feedbacks are good. Do your shtick." You know?
Yeah.
In the meantime, you know, I was just in Vancouver 3 weeks ago. I did a whole week. You know, it's a pulp mill. You know, there are 2 pulp mills in Germany and 1 in BC, and they do a leadership program, and they specifically ask for the guy with the Enneagram.
Wow.
That's how it has changed.
Wow.
And they like the aspect of self-reflection and the beauty of diversity. We are all different, and that's wonderful.
And it's good news, yeah. So I think this might be a good segue to how do you see it compared to other tools and how they're being used in the organizations, which I think implicit in that question is also how do you present this to your clients in terms of if they ask, well, what about the MBTI or what about the DISC, since you all have used, it sounds like multiple tools, although I think probably more and more you just use the Enneagram, but how does it compare to other tools when used in organizations, and how do you make a case for the Enneagram potentially? So do you want to start since you're... Yeah.
In one organization, a German engineering organization, 18,000 people, everybody has done the DISC. You know? So it's big business. I don't know, 500 euros per person, and everybody does it. You know? And the red and the yellow, they are the good ones, and the blue, the green, they are the bad ones. But then in projects, if you have all these red guys, you get nothing done, you know, because they're fighting all the time. And so my colleague, a 6, he had this brilliant idea. He went to HR of that organization and said, "Well, you're only using the DISC. I mean, this gets into a cult mentality. You know, you need to have 2 models." And they say, "Oh yeah, you are right. You know, we shouldn't just use one and then kind of elevate this. This is really, we all bow down to the tool, whatever." You know, and he said, "Well, we are doing project management training there, so we said we want to integrate the Enneagram and the DISC into our program." And they had never thought about it, and they bought the idea. So now they are all doing the Enneagram as well, and they recognize the difference. It's a big, big difference. You know, you can measure introvert, extrovert, yeah, scientifically. See, but in the Enneagram, you know, you have some Enneagram drives or styles that are introvert and some that are extrovert for different reasons. You know, and they understand all this, and in the project management teams, they always say the Enneagram really helps me. The DISC doesn't help me much. You know, there's just a statement. This is who you are. You know, your pizza slice is this big, the yellow one, and the red one is this big. But what do you do with it? And see, the way I always explain it also is the Enneagram, you have the real you, and in Germany I can say that, we are a soulful people. Probably you don't know that, but...
It's a social subtype country, yeah.
Right. And, we have, for example, we have 80 opera houses. Did you know that? I mean, with
full-time opera houses.
Full-time opera houses.
You know how many the U.S. has? One.
There's only one in the
They have
U.S. I mean,
80.
the rest of the world has probably 80 opera houses, and Germany has 80. Full-time, and an opera house in a place where I live, I mean, they have over 1,000 employees. It's a big business, and the government pays for it. Why? Well, we had a terrible time between 1914 and 1945. The Germans did some horrible stuff, so they decided something must be wrong with us. And, let's not follow this path. Let's just take glass, metal, rubber, and build stuff that the whole world buys. But underneath, there's this yearning for a soul and a soulful life. And I always say, this is who you really are. This is your soul. And then you have the reference point. You need that for self-observation. If you only observe with one eye, just hold your hand in front of your eye and just look. You cannot see three-dimensional. You can only see two-dimensional. So this is the greatest gift we have. And it's necessary for self-observation. If you didn't have this, you couldn't do self-observation. You would be driven by your instincts, purely instincts, no reflection. So this is a real gift, God's gift, whatever, however you want to call it. It's not to be fought, but it has to be in the right place. Now, if you put this to sleep, or you deny who you really are, and you identify with this, then you're in real trouble. And the way I explain it is I say, well, the Enneagram is there. Don't learn much about the Enneagram. Learn something about yourself. It helps you. It's a map, as you said. And if you can learn something about yourself, what are you here for? What is your destiny? What does your soul want you to do? You need self-reflection, and it has to be in silence. Your soul is not going to yell and scream at you what you are supposed to be doing this lifetime. It's calm and quiet. It whispers, and sometimes somebody talks to you, and all this. And this is how I explain it. And I say, you can measure the personality traits like the disc, but with the Enneagram, it's about you. And learning something about you, and if you want a fulfilled life, not just accomplishments or achievements, if you want fulfillment, find out. And the Enneagram can really help you. It's the most wonderful roadmap for you to find out what you want to do in this life.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Thanks. Thank you. some support for that. And it sounds like a lot of what you're saying is it's about setting yourself up for success.
Absolutely.
And almost having a success mindset and seeing
Absolutely.
the Enneagram as something that's going to bring that about, just because of what it is. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Martin, anything you have to add to that?
Well,
Best practices, advice?
first, what the colleagues already said, if you are not willing to change yourself, don't get involved in change projects. It's pretty simple. I had this happen, recently with an American colleague, and it was a change project, and she was not willing to change. It was hard, really hard. And she actually said it also. She's from the Enneagram community, but she said, I don't want to change. And then better don't. Don't get involved. I have criteria like that. I don't do any other workshop that's not minimum 2 days. And if they don't have the time, I don't do it, period. Don't be dogmatic about anything. My phrase always is, when in doubt, life is right, not the model. And pretty simple. And I didn't start as an Enneagram trainer or coach or teacher. I started with communication skills and negotiation. I'm a sales guy also. You know, I just wrote a book. It's coming out next month in German. Too bad, but it's just on sales. Nothing with the Enneagram. You know, so I tried to prove my competence in other fields. And then the customers come by themselves and say, what else do you have? You know, this is how it all has happened. You know, I do negotiation skill classes. You know, I think I developed some state-of-the-art stuff, you know, that is really, integrates all of the things that I've done in my consciousness work, personally. And people realize that, and then it's so easy to say, hey, you know, you want to do something really great, let's do the Enneagram.
Anything to add, Martin?
Well, in leadership development, I think it's really important to talk about integration. You know, to talk about the integration of all these drives. I don't like the word type so much. You know, I always talk about style. It's an Enneagram style or the Enneagram drive. What motivates me? What's the energy that's driving me? And as a musician, it's all resonance, right? And we know, all scientists know, everything is resonance in consciousness. So to integrate the different drives that are available is the guarantee for a happy life. If you want an unhappy life, just stay with your Enneagram type and overdo it. You know, overdo the energy. You will be unhappy, guaranteed. No other guarantees in life, but this is guaranteed. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. To integrate, you know, all the other energies, it's for me, it's like, you know, I was discussing it with Ron yesterday, you know, like a jazz chord with all these 9 tones spread over 3 octaves, you know. It's so much more beautiful than just a single tone or an octave or a fifth, you know, as a musician. And if you pursue the path of integration, you know, if you are 1, don't only go to the 7, but integrate the 5 and the 8, you know, and the 2 and the 4, and then come back and then go to your wing, you know, the 9, and then the 3 and the 6, and think about these things, because that's going to be sustainable. If you integrate those resonances, and that's how I like to explain it also to business people. You know, if you overdo your thing, you know, you're going to stumble. If you're a control freak, you're just going to, you know, or if you are an achiever, you know, you run into the wall, into the brick wall, and you don't even see it coming. Right. You know, so in professional expertise, it's different. You know, if you are mediocre and you have to put in a lot of work to improve a little bit, but that's not enough, right? So it's better to delegate. It's clear, focus on your strengths. But with the Enneagram, you have to integrate all the other energies. Otherwise, unhappy life.
Right, and it gives a clear map or a clear explanation for why that works. Yeah, beautiful, thank you.
And then I have a question about the tension between getting the type fast and person's own investment and self-discovery. So I'd really like you to talk about that a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
See, for me, it's clear the person, you know, that I'm coaching is responsible for finding out their own style. It's not me. It's not my job. Sometimes people believe they are a different drive, and that's okay. I have a different opinion there. It's totally okay. Maybe it's even part of it. You know, I can tell my own story. You know, believing I was a 3 for about 5 years, then discovering no, it's a 4. So I really appreciate the 3s like I have not met any other 4 that appreciates 3s the way I do.
Yeah.